Time now for the Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.
Phone lines are open at 1-800-684-3110. But let's hear from NBC News. This was a conversation with President Trump just yesterday.
Should the supreme leader in Iran be worried right now?
I would say he should be very worried, yeah. He should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us.
I know they are, but the protesters have said, where are the Americans? You promised them we would have their back. Do we still have their back?
Well, we've had their back, and look, that country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear.
So that's the question. If we wipe them out,
we have peace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
If I didn't take out their nuclear, think of it. If we didn't take out that nuclear, we wouldn't have peace in the Middle East because the Arab countries could have never done that. They were very, very afraid of Iran.
Yeah. Interesting, almost antagonistic approach from NBC News a little bit there.
Surprise.
Or just more, maybe it's more conversational, but, pushing President Trump on these issues, saying where the people are saying, where's the United States? I do think there's a discussion point to be had of how far you take this. And I think a lot of Americans, and we'll ask Rick Grinnell about this later on, because Rick has been one of those original voices within the Trump administration, a guy who worked, by the way, for the Bush administration during the War on Terror, saw the good and the bad that came from that, and very much was in favor of the way President Trump kind of pitched the no new wars and that feedback. So when you have a moment like this where President Trump, and I quote, says he should be very worried, that does throw a little bit of a different plan for people who aren't expecting. Now, again, doesn't necessarily mean there'll be the boots on the ground kind of war happening.
Well, and here's what I want to hear from the audience about, because if the president and the negotiators go to Oman and it is only about the nuclear issue, all of this stemmed from the protests on the ground that we saw. That is why Iran, as the president said, if you start killing your civilians, then we will get involved. That's where all these getting back to the negotiating table stemmed from. And remember, the president and his team were negotiating with the Iranians in the summer of last year, spring and summer. He gave them a 60-day deadline to actually come to a deal. The Iranians kept moving the goalpost, as they tend to do, to stall. And what did the president do? He bombed their nuclear facilities on June 22nd of 2025. And remember what our press, and when you hear this reporter from NBC saying, should the supreme leader be worried right now? On June 21st, The Atlantic wrote a piece by David Frum that was titled, "What Iran Knows About Trump." And the subtitle was, "The mullahs of Iran joined the bet that Trump always chickens out." The next day, their nuclear sites were decimated by those B-52 bombers that went in Operation Midnight Hammer. So I feel like the Ayatollah and the mullahs in Iran are coming to this negotiation with a different context. That being said, they're still playing games, moving the site 2 days before, saying things are off limits with negotiation. I feel like they should be a little bit more apprehensive based off their last round of talks. But here's the question I have for our audience.
Okay.
If the president agrees to only a nuclear issue negotiation, and they come out of this agreeing to get rid of their entire nuclear program. We, know the Iranians are patient because they will wait as long as they can to build up that arsenal. And with their end goal, destroying Israel, destroying the United States, if they can attempt that. Are you fine with sidelining the issue of the human rights for a more America first policy of they don't have nuclear power, they can deal with themselves?
It's less of a stress
on
you.
Or is it concerning that what got us here again is something that we have been calling for a long time, the liberation of the Iranian people? We've been upset with what Obama's deal did in propping up the regime longer. It was a terrible deal. But would you trade a non-nuclear Iran for at least a long time, where they have to hit complete reset buttons, start at zero if they are wanting to build up a nuclear program? Would you trade that for leaving them in power for longer? Or would you like to see a more aggressive campaign that ends up ousting the mullahs in that theocratic death cult?
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel. Stay informed anytime, anywhere with the Salem News Channel and 9:30 a.m. TheAnswer.com. This has been The Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.